When I first saw the Zenbook Fold, I wondered what is it and what is it for? It's not easy to put it in a category, it's gender fluid to say the least, for it's not really a laptop, not really an all-in-one desktop, and not really a tablet either. It's a bit of everything. It's different and truly spectacular. It can look like a normal laptop when folded in half, a gigantic 17-inch tablet when you unfold it completely flat, or a tiny all-in-one desktop when you place it on the table using its back leg and adding the removable magnetic keyboard. But leaving behind the wow factor, you can't help but wonder about its purpose. Looking for an answer, I placed it next to another exotic ASUS device to have a one-on-one comparison, a Zenbook 14 Pro Duo, which, although exotic, is still a mature device that has been on the market for years and that people are used to. And at first sight, the only thing that speaks we are brothers of the same mother is the OLED technology used by both models. Each of these two offers more than just a regular display. One has a foldable display, the other has two panels, and this makes them somewhat special in a market that's still dominated by traditional laptops. But before we actually get down to business, I must warn you, neither of these laptops you're about to see are designed for those with limited budgets. So let's see what we get for the big bucks we pay for these two toys. I'll start, of course, with the elephant in the room, namely the Fold model. I quickly realized this model is not for me. If you shove a price tag of thousands of dollars down my throat, well, give me something that will be groundbreaking in terms of performance, and that's not the case here. But if to me wow equals powerful processors and crazy video cards, ASUS felt that to others, wow may equal with a 12-inch laptop with a magnetic Bluetooth keyboard and a hinge designed to fold the screen in the middle. The Zenbook Fold feels unlike any other laptop I've used, and this exotic format gives it the shape-shifting abilities. It's about 5 distinct modes: laptop, desktop, tablet, e-reader or extended screen. The laptop mode is plain obvious, so let's move on to the desktop. You leave out the mode containing the keyboard and touchpad, as the module is connected via Bluetooth and held in place by magnets anyway. You tilt the screen and turn it horizontally so that it rests on the case-integrated stand, and you have an all-in-one system with wireless keyboard. Or you can turn it into a tablet straight away. You just put the keyboard in the backpack, hold the Now tablet in your arms and start binge-watching whatever show you like. Or if you're in transit and get bored while on train or plane, you can download your favorite ebook to this gadget, tilt it in book position, slightly bend it in half and start reading. Throw in a blue light filter and you won't even feel how time flies. And if you want to be more exquisite and attract corporate stares at Starbucks, you detach the keyboard but don't straighten the laptop. And you sit there with the laptop folded up, having a text editor pinned on the bottom screen and taking notes from the clip or conference running on the upper half of the screen. And as strange as all these might sound, don't tell me that if you had one of these you wouldn't enjoy it. But this buffet of formats and usage options couldn't be worth a few $1,000s on their own, so the device has to deliver some performance, and that's where the Zenbook Fold is a bit short of. It bends nicely, it's good for reading and watching movies, but bro, I haven't seen a processor get tired while unpacking a slightly larger zip file till now. And that's because ASUS chose to fit inside an Intel Core i7 1250U. Yes, it's the Intel Evo platform or whatever, and it's still an older lake at its core. But the problem is that out of the impressive total of 10 cores, only 2 are performance cores, while the other 8 are there for less complicated tasks, making this so-called i7 more of a Pentium Gold with genetic mutations. The rest of the hardware isn't anything legendary either, and between the 16 GB of RAM and the integrated Iris Xe graphics, the only one that manages to impress me is the 1TB Samsung NVMe SSD borrowed from the Zenbook Pro 14 Duo, which really is a very capable high-end component. My test in PC Mark X is here to show what I'm talking about. So, the Zenbook Fold reinforces the overall idea of a device dedicated to office users, as in the productivity or content creation, it doesn't quite work wonders. And yet, we're talking about a useful laptop in the way it can bend and flip, featuring 2 high-speed Thunderbolt ports and a large and sharp screen. So good, I wish I could use it for more than just office, browsing, watching movies and reading books. So I'd say we will have to wait a bit more until newer and stronger configurations come out. But maybe in a few years, this kind of device will become an all-accessible standard once it gets the approval of early adopters and rich tech wannabes. For the Zenbook Fold to become a mass-market device, two things need to happen. The price needs to drop dramatically and the performance needs to increase substantially to be more than just a shape-shifting thing. But if you want your device to be both exotic and powerful now, you should have a look at the second device in this video. Not quite as spectacular, but certainly more powerful. The Zenbook Pro 14 Duo is a laptop that's quite classic on the outside, but things get very different when you lift the lid. That Duo in the name doesn't mean it's both a tablet and a laptop or some weird hybrid like that. It has a much more straightforward meaning. Basically, it tells you directly how many screens the laptop has. Once you lift the lid, you're hit with a 14-inch screen and its little brother. So obviously we're going to start the discussion with that. The big main screen has 14.5 inch and comes with a 2880 by 1800 pixels resolution, that's a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. It has a response time of just 0.2 milliseconds and a refresh rate of 120 Hz. Keep in mind though that despite the good performance, it's still not a gaming laptop. Accuracy-wise, it has 93% coverage of the DCI-P3 color spectrum and achieves a maximum brightness of 550 nits. Next to it, we have another display with a 12.7 diagonal and a weirder format. That's basically a half-cut lengthwise of the one above. That translates into an even more unusual resolution, 2880 by 864 pixels. It has the same 120 Hz refresh rate, equally thin edges, 500 nits maximum brightness and stylus support. And if you're wondering how it's possible to have a second screen in there, we need to talk about some engineering aspects. If this secondary screen had been mounted face up, glued to the chassis, it would have been hard to look at, no matter how good it was. And then ASUS gave it a few degrees of angle, and in that way it suddenly became useful. ASUS figured that by doing this they could also open a small vent for the warm air trapped inside, so that the laptop could get decent temperatures for the pretty powerful hardware inside, without sacrificing things like the thickness or shape of the laptop. So, two birds with one stone. You tilt it so you can see better, and by tilting it you also get better ventilation inside. Smart, right? But if that wasn't a problem, something else definitely had to suffer, and that's the keyboard. Although I write a lot, I'm not picky like others in terms of keyboards. I make do with what I have. But the keyboard on the Zenbook Pro 14 Duo left me scratching my head. It's so damn cramped, has smaller and narrower keys than other laptops, and on top of that you have to squeeze a touchpad next to it that's so small it's almost useless. In other words, this additional and otherwise very nice screen eats up the space normally reserved for the keyboard. And to me, that's not a valid trade-off. And this is where we begin to understand the target audience for whom ASUS felt this sacrifice wouldn't matter so much. Content creators and people who work a lot in photo-video editing software. Those for whom the keyboard is nothing more than a shortcut panel and the secondary screen to flick the tools you work with is more important. So ASUS have gone one step further and included stylus support, so you have a sort of graphic tablet built into your laptop, powered of course by dedicated software to make the secondary screen more useful. And I guess they bet on the right horse, as the series has proven to be a success, so the new generation of Duo, this one, comes only as a hotfix for the small problems of the past and as an upgrade on the hardware side. Inside lies an Intel Core i9 12900H CPU, 32 gigs of RAM, a 1TB NVMe SSD and a dedicated NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3050 Ti GPU. The latter is NVIDIA Studio certified, meaning it's suited rather for professional work than for gaming, and offers enough juice to not only power fast screens, but also run decent applications like Photoshop, Premiere or DaVinci Resolve. As for the CPU, we already know the drill. With 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores, this bodybuilder goes for a total of 20 threads, which can be clocked up to 5 GHz and has proven to be one of the most impressive laptop processors we've ever tested. And when I say impressive, I mean the power it delivers relative to the size of the cooling, power efficiency and implementation overall. And for context, such a CPU scores in Cinebench R23 somewhere around 1700 points in single core and around 50,400 in multi-core. These are scores that place it close to pretty powerful desktop CPUs. And all of this is packed into a very tight chassis. It comes with 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, which are extremely useful when you're transferring lots of data, plus you get a very fast SSD and plenty of RAM. And the cool part comes when you lower your eyes to the bottom screen and realize you can control Photoshop directly with your finger, move your tools there to save space on the main screen, and even keep it as a sort of a multifunctional Stream Deck. Pretty cool, right? But after everything I said so far, I bet you expect the price to be huge. But to be honest, I don't think $2,000 is an absurd price for this laptop. And when you earn your bread and butter working on such a device, I say this one is well worth it. And then you suddenly realize that one such laptop costs nearly as much as two of these. And you can't help but wonder, why is that? Because if you're going by performance and functionality, the Zenbook Pro 14 Duo beats the Fold. Which is more spectacular? The Fold. Which is more powerful and practical? Definitely the Duo. And here's how we understand what's the deal with these two devices. While the Fold is an early design, more of a concept, the Zenbook Pro 14 Duo, while remaining exotic and interesting, is a mature and practical model. But despite Fold's astronomical price tag, it takes risks. And that is the only way for progress. No guts, no glory, simple as that. And who knows, maybe in a few years from now, its performance will catch up with the design. So don't hate on it on the comments, any new product segment has to start somewhere. And kudos to ASUS for the courage they've been showing for years when it comes to taking risks. They don't always get it right, but unlike many others, at least they try. The Zenbook Fold idea isn't exactly new, and I'm sure some of you would remind me of the Lenovo Yoga of this sort, but what ASUS has done with the Fold is not only bolder, but bigger, more expensive, and more complicated. We'll see if the future embraces their approach or not. And now let's flood the comment section. How do you like the Zenbook Fold OLED? How about the Zenbook Pro 14 Duo? Which one do you like and why? Do you think one day we will all end up using such foldable laptops, or is it just a hoax? I'm very curious about your opinions and I can't wait to find out your betting odds. If you liked what you saw, subscribe to Techniqualities, but whether you do it or not, I thank you anyway. Cheers!